Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. Andre here. Welcome to another part of our 5-part tour of Egypt.
From its two sources in the high regions of the African interior, the Nile flowed north. Here along this fertile strip, the ancestors of the ancient Egyptians settled.
Our first stop was the Temple of Philae. Philae? Philae? Either way, this place was incredibly important to the worshipping of the ancient Egyptian power couple Osiris and Isis. Osiris was the god of pretty much everything, right? Life, death, the afterlife, resurrection, fertility, vegetation, agriculture. We're talking about a pretty busy dude here. And his wife Isis, incidentally, brought him back from the dead. So, pretty good to have around.
On an island in the Nile in Upper Egypt stands the Temple of Philae. The requirements of a later civilization caused the level of the river to be raised, thus flooding the island.
The really interesting part about this place, at least in the modern context, is the fact that in the 1960s, when they were getting ready to build the Aswan Dam, this temple was going to be in a flood zone. So rather than let it be destroyed, UNESCO decided to dismantle it brick by brick, pick it up, and move it.
A few temples have been saved by being dismantled and moved, stone by stone, to higher ground.
Future archaeologists are going to be very, very confused.
So we've been walking around this temple for the last half hour or so, learning all about the history of the location. And it occurs to me that when you look at something like the pyramids, it's so vast and so persisting throughout history. It's easy to kind of take it for granted that it's always going to be there, and no matter what passing army comes through or what kind of historical or governmental changes happen, you're always going to end up having the pyramids because they're just so huge. But then you come to a place like this that's so steeped in intricacy and detail work, suddenly you're struck by just how fragile things are. Even down to us picking the entire place up and moving it miles away so that we can build a dam. Every wave of history that comes through ends up fundamentally changing something, whether they mean to or not. It really puts it into perspective just how long these places persist, but at the same time, they keep changing because people change around them. They stay the same. The bricks don't change. It's us who change them. And that's something to really take into consideration when you're thinking about the grand scale of human history and the way that these structures and these cultures affect human history, but then are affected by it.
Have you ever been to the temple of a crocodile god? I have.
So that's the crocodile. I thought it was something different.
The Kamambo temple is dedicated to the crocodile god Sobek, who, along with being the god of fertility, was also the co-creator of the world. Hey, wait a second, Andre. You just said Osiris was the god of fertility. Easy, Tiger. The ancient Egyptians had 13 gods associated with fertility. They needed all the help they could get.
So the chamber I'm standing in right now used to be used for the priests. They would come inside here and they would listen to the prayers of the kings, and then they would respond to them as if they were the gods. And so you can kind of get a sense of what the echo is like in here, and how if you were really projecting, you'd be able to maybe convey the idea that you were speaking on behalf of one of the gods, if not speaking as one of the gods. This is kind of part of maybe the smoke and mirrors of the priesthood, trying to convince the kings and the queens, maybe the queens, at the very least the kings, that they had an active relationship with the gods, and that the gods were taking a vested active interest in them by communicating directly through the temple. So I'm going to walk out into the chamber that would be normally referred to as the Holy of Holies, the most coveted, the most sacred spot inside the temple. Except here's the thing about that space, is that when you walk out of this chamber and you see there's not much left here anymore, is there? Because the walls are gone and everything is now exposed to the open air. So imagine this space was completely enclosed, was completely interior space. All of these walls that you see that are bare stone with engravings on them used to be magnificently colored, which you can't even see anymore because they've all worn away as the walls went away, as the walls came down. Obviously, paint would have been exposed to the elements and then all got torn down and got worn away over the years. Right over there's a group of people who are working. That is not construction. That is not, restoration. That is active archaeology happening. They are doing an excavation on this site, interchangeably or intermittently sponsored by either the US government or UNESCO, to find more artifacts from this location, to try to uncover more information. And so one of the most interesting things about touring these sites is that you see that it is a constant search for more information. We're still looking, we're still learning, and there's no better evidence of the fact that it's going on right behind me right now. It's not glamorous, it's not Indiana Jones. The search for knowledge and understanding of our past never ends.
One of the great parts about being on an actual cruise ship going up the Nile, just like being on the train, is that you get to see all this amazing landscape as you go by. Only fitting that at the end of the day we would go to the temple of Edfu, which is dedicated to Horus, the son of Isis and Osiris. He was the god of the sky, which makes sense because he had the head of a falcon.
At Edfu, the great god Horus is enshrined in his own temple.
We're at the temple of Edfu right now, and you can hear the Islamic call to prayer in the background. One of the reasons this place is so significant, I think, and one of the things that interests me, especially in contrast to this morning's trip, was that this place is actually still intact. I think the guide said this is one of the most intact temples in all of Egypt, and it gives you an idea of just what we've lost from the other sites that we visited. Standing here in this central courtyard, you can see the walls behind it. You can see the intricacy of the interior carvings. I've said this word probably more in this last week than my entire life, but it's just incredible to see the sheer scale. One of the reasons this place is so well preserved is because as the river tides rose over time, maybe they're not tides, just the level of the river rose over time, the entire place became encased in mud. So the outside of the building, the outside of the perimeter was essentially completely cut off. That's why so many of the carvings inside are so well preserved. But what you'll also notice as we look up into the ceiling is that the ceiling is charred in many of the different rooms and chambers here. And the reason for that is because as the years went on, people would take up residence inside the temple. They would build fires for food and warmth. Over time, the smoke and the ash and the heat from the fires would char the ceilings. So if we just tilt up, you can take a look and see that the blackness of the ceiling covering up and obscuring a lot of the etchings and paintwork that are up there. So the thing about the room I'm sitting in right now is that this is basically a giant recipe book. All of the inscriptions here amount to recipes for different prescriptions. And so you can look at each of the carvings here and they're separated by a symbol that indicates the RX. It's all of the carvings throughout the entire space amount to the same columns of aromatherapy prescriptions. I really wish I could get up to the ceiling to give you an idea of just how high it goes.
Alright guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. There are 4 other parts to our Egypt adventure, so make sure you check those out. In the meantime, hit the like button, show me some love, hit the subscribe button because there are new videos coming every week, and I will see you, no, you will see me in the next video.